Deer eyes reflect light at about 3 feet off the ground. Coyotes, lower. Even a black bear, standing, tops out around 6. Tonight's story comes from a woman who pointed her flashlight at the treeline outside Peoria, Illinois, and found 2 points of light looking back at her from 9 feet in the air. 3 nights later, she would wake up warm, rested, and 50 feet from where she went to sleep, inside a tent that had been picked up, carried, and set back down at the edge of the trees, with the door turned to face the woods. And that was only the second strangest thing that happened to her out there. Stay with me. This one takes its time.
This story was shared by a woman I'll call Jenna, 31 years old, from Peoria, Illinois. It happened over 3 nights in early October, in a wooded camping area about 40 minutes outside the city. She still lives in Peoria. She has not been camping since. Jenna wasn't new to any of this. She grew up camping with her dad, and after a rough year, a breakup, a job change, she'd gotten back into solo trips. A tent, a cooler, her dog Scout, a 60-pound shepherd mix who had done a dozen trips with her. Solo camping as a woman gets you a lot of lectures, she said. But out there was the only place her head went quiet. She picked a dispersed site at the far edge of a state forest area, past the maintained campground, down a gravel spur, where you camp for free and see nobody. The clearing was perfect. Flat ground, a stone fire ring left by someone before her, tall oaks on 3 sides, and a wall of older, darker timber to the north. She set the tent facing the fire ring, south, with her car 20 feet away. The first evening was the kind she'd driven out there for. Sausages over the fire, coffee going cold beside her chair, Scout dozing with his chin on her boot. October woods, that smell of cold leaves. She texted her sister a photo of the fire, 1 bar of signal, enough. Then she banked the coals and turned in around 10:30.
She woke at some point in the night because Scout was sitting up. Not barking. Not growling. Just sitting upright in the dark of the tent, facing north. She listened. Nothing but wind. She told him to lie down, and he did, but she noticed he kept his head up. She fell back asleep before she could think much about it. The second time she woke, it was 3 a.m. and Scout was standing. She unzipped the tent a few inches and swept her flashlight across the clearing. Grass. Fire ring. Her car. And at the north treeline, the light caught 2 points of amber. Eye shine. Every camper knows it. She'd seen deer eyes 100 times. Except these weren't at deer height. They were up in the trees, she guessed 7 feet, maybe more. An owl, she told herself. Owls sit in trees. But owl eyes face forward in a flat disk of a face, and they're small. These were wide set. Wide like something with a broad skull. She held the light on them for 10 seconds. They didn't blink. Then she moved the beam away and back, and they were gone. She lay awake for a while doing the math every camper does. Raccoon on a branch. 2 moths. Reflectors somebody stapled to a tree. By the time she fell asleep she'd settled on owl, wrong about the eyes, and Scout settled too, and that was night 1. In the morning she did what she was raised to do, she walked the treeline. No tracks in the soft ground.
No scat, no fur on the bark. But on one of the oaks at the edge of the dark timber, about 8 feet up, the bark was scuffed. A pale scrape, like something heavy had braced against it. Too high for a buck rub. She took a photo. The photo, she says, never really captured how wrong it looked. The day was beautiful and she let it talk her down. She hiked the loop trail, threw sticks for Scout in a creek bed, read half a book in the sun. This is the part she wants people to understand: nothing felt wrong in daylight. Not once. Whatever was out there kept office hours.
One small thing. Coming back up the spur trail, she passed the fire ring of an abandoned site. And on the flat stone in its center, someone had stacked 4 small rocks in a neat little tower. She hadn't noticed it on the way out. It's a trail thing, people stack cairns, it means nothing. She kicked it over anyway. She couldn't tell you why. Second night. She kept the fire bigger and later than usual, and Scout wouldn't leave the tent door. Around midnight she let the fire die and zipped them both in. She left her headlamp on her chest and her keys in her boot by the door. Old habits. Just in case habits. At 2:40 a.m. Scout woke her with a sound she'd never heard him make. Not a growl. A whine, low and continuous, from the back of the tent, as far from the door as he could get. 60 pounds of shepherd trying to be small. She killed her breathing and listened. And she heard it. Steps. Not the quick 4-beat patter of a deer. 2 feet. Slow. And the spacing was wrong, each step came a beat later than her body expected, like the thing making them covered too much ground between footfalls. A long stride. A tall stride. It crossed from the north treeline toward the fire ring. Then it stopped. She didn't unzip the door. She used the gap at the window flap. The clearing was black, moonless, and she waited until her eyes adjusted rather than use the light. Against the sky she could make out the fire ring, the pale shape of her car. And between them, closer than the treeline now, 2 amber points, faintly catching the ember glow. Higher than her car. Higher than her standing on her car. She clicked the flashlight on. The eyes didn't startle. They didn't bound away. They slid, sideways, smooth and level, like a lantern being carried by someone who didn't bother to bob or step. 10 feet of glide, back toward the trees, never dropping an inch in height. And then the timber took them and the clearing was empty. She sat with her back against the cooler and the keys in her fist until the bird started. Scout never moved from the back corner. At first light she unzipped the tent and the clearing looked as ordinary as a parking lot. Dew on the grass. Cold fire ring. And in the soft ground by the ring, nothing. Not one print. She'd watched something cross that ground twice. The ground had nothing to say about it. She drove into the nearest town for coffee, phone signal, and honestly, people. Aisles, fluorescent lights, a cashier who called her hon. She'd half convinced herself again,
sleep deprivation, an owl, a trick of ember light. When she stopped at the counter of the diner and the county deputy in the next seat asked how the camping was going. Small towns. Her out-of-county plates and firewood in the truck bed had already introduced her. She said fine, gave the name of the spur road, and made a joke about the local wildlife having a growth spurt. She expected a laugh. The deputy, mid-50s, she guessed, the kind of face that doesn't rent out expressions for free, didn't laugh. He asked, quietly, what exactly she'd seen. So she told him. The height. The glide. The silence in the dirt.
He stirred his coffee for a while. Then he said that stretch of timber had a reputation, and had for as long as he'd worked the county. Lights up in the trees. Campers who packed out at 3 a.m. and mailed the state a check for the gear they left behind. He said the old campground loop on that side was closed years ago, officially for flooding. He said the word officially the way you'd hold up something with 2 fingers. He didn't tell her a story. She asked, and he wouldn't. All he said was, whatever it is out there, it's patient, it's curious, and in 30 years it has never once touched anybody that he knew of. And then he said the thing she keeps coming back to. Ma'am, it doesn't want you to leave. It wants you to sleep. He told her to move to the main campground. He bought her coffee. He left. Here's the part where everyone listening yells at their phone. She went back. And she wants you to know why, because it made sense at the time. It was 2 p.m. and sunny. Her gear was there. Nothing had ever come closer than the fire ring. And a lifetime of camping had taught her that spooky stories at diner counters are a local sport. She would pack tonight, sleep one last night, and be gone by 8. That was the plan. She spent the evening breaking down everything but the tent. Cooler in the car. Chairs in the car. She parked the car nose out, backed up to within 10 feet of the tent door. She set her phone recording audio on the tent floor, plugged into a battery pack. Scout got fed early and watched all of it from the door with his ears flat. She remembers checking her watch at 9:58. She remembers thinking she'd stay up till midnight, keep the fire between her and the north trees. And then, her words, someone turned her off. Not drifting off. Off. Like a switch thrown. No dreams. No cold. No scout. Nothing. She surfaced once. She doesn't know when. The fire was dead and the tent was the kind of dark you can feel on your skin. And through the mesh of the window flap, up where there should have been only branches and sky, there were the 2 amber points. Inside the clearing. Directly over where the fire ring should be. And as she watched, unable to move her arms, one of the 2 lights went out and came back. Then the other. They blinked. One at a time. She wants to be precise about this, because it's the part that frightens her most. She was not paralyzed with fear. She was not frozen. She was being put back under. She could feel it happening, sleep rolling up her body like water, in the middle of the worst moment of her life. The last thing she registered was that the eyes were coming down. Descending. Slowly. The way you'd crouch. She woke at 7:40 to birdsong, warm, rested, genuinely rested, that was the obscene part, and knew before she opened her eyes that something was wrong with the light. Her tent door faced south. Morning sun should hit the left wall. It was blazing straight through the door mesh, gold and low, directly into her face. She lay there for a full minute listening. Scout was pressed against her leg, awake, silent, staring at the door. She unzipped it one tooth at a time. And the view outside was not her view. No fire ring. No car. Just trees, close, dark, hardwood trunks a few feet from the door. For one dizzy moment she thought, I'm somewhere else. It's taken me somewhere else. Then she leaned out and saw the clearing, 50 feet away. Her car where she'd parked it. The fire ring, cold. The rectangle of yellowed grass where her tent had stood for 3 nights. Her tent, with her and a 60-pound dog asleep inside it, had been moved 50 feet, to the edge of the north timber. And turned. The door no longer faced the clearing. It faced into the trees. Every stake was in the ground. Driven full depth, guy lines tensioned, the way her father taught her. Her boots were inside where she'd left them, keys still in the right one. The battery pack was still charging her phone. 50 feet of soft. Dew-heavy October ground lay between the old spot and the new one. There were no drag marks. There were no footprints. There was nothing. She didn't pack so much as evacuate. Tent stuffed loose in the trunk, Scout over the tailgate, gravel spitting. She was an hour down the interstate in a McDonald's parking lot, doors locked, before she remembered the phone had been recording all night. 9 hours and 40 minutes of audio. She scrubbed to 2 a.m. and put in her earbuds. Until 3:05 a.m., nothing. Her breathing. Scout shifting. At 3:06, steps, the long, patient, 2-beat stride, circling the tent. 4 full circuits. Then a sound directly above the phone, above the tent, that she can only describe as a slow exhale the size of a room. And then, for 6 minutes, a sound like fabric moving through grass. Steady, unhurried, rhythmic. While inside the tent, on the recording, her own breathing never changes. Never catches. Sleep straight through being carried. At 3:14 a.m. the movement stops. And the last thing on the recording, before 4 silent hours, is the zipper of her tent window. Opening. 2 teeth. 3. And then closing again. Something looked in at her. Checked on her. Tucked her in at the edge of the dark timber, facing the trees, and left. She called the sheriff's office that afternoon, mostly so it would exist on paper. The deputy from the diner took the report himself. He didn't laugh, didn't reassure her, wrote down everything including the audio. And as she was leaving he said one more thing, quietly. That she's never been able to decide how to take. He said, "You're the third one this year, ma'am. You're the first one." It moved gently. Jenna sold the tent. Not because of what happened to it, because Scout would not go near it again. It sat in her garage for a month and the dog wouldn't walk past the door. She still has the audio file. She's never played it for anyone in person. She says the eyes aren't what wakes her up at night. What wakes her up is how well she slept. Something in that timber watched a stranger for 3 nights. It learned her dog, her fire, her habits. And on the last night it picked her up, bed, walls, and all, and set her down at the edge of its woods, door facing in. As if it wanted her to see something when she woke. Or wanted something to see her. She didn't wait to find out. Whatever counts campers out past the gravel spur near Peoria, it's still there. It's patient. And it prefers you asleep. Thanks for listening. Sleep well. If you can.